Citizens Audit, Part 2. Alright. Is it going? ED's going. Let's go. January 26, 2010. Calusa. Mr. Chev. Mr. Chev. The picture above has an interesting story behind it. We were at a local-owned coffee shop in Calusa that had great reviews on Yelp, Twisted River Cafe, chatting with the counter person when we found out MTV was in town. We stayed to watch the film crew come and go, and right before we got up to leave, I overheard a conversation to my left. It's becoming like radar. As soon as I hear a political opinion, my ears perk up. We meekly ask for a couple minutes of this man's time. It turns out he's a regional rep for Chevron. So we have one of the largest companies in the world, and we have one of the largest propagators of bullshit culture right there in that same coffee shop, small town America, small town California. And we're doing alternative media here, and we're hoping for alternative politics to help reform these institutions. So this is a good contrast between values. This interview shows that demonizing people or corporations doesn't do any good, because he goes on to talk about his kids and family like anyone else with human values. And he was kind enough to give me a little sincere citizen-to-citizen time on camera, which is what we need if we're going to fix our state, although he is retiring out of state. And some would argue that the company he works for has a track record, and some would argue that the company he works for has a track record of exactly the opposite. My takeaway from him: don't believe everything I read in papers. What I hope his takeaway from me: maybe when a corporation destroys lives, its charter should be revoked. The death penalty for corporations. We have to start reining in these things somehow. Truth, liberty, toleration. I'm not sure what to make of this plaque we found on an old high school building in Calusa. From what I found, the native sons of the Golden West weren't very truthful or tolerant, and were quick to deny you liberty if you weren't white, kind of like a California-only KKK. One of their tolerance quotes: California was given by God to a white people, and with God's strength, we want to keep it as he gave it to us. Remember, there's a genocide that went on in order to establish our geographic borders. To ignore that history is to do the victims of our genocide a disservice. So this is how we founded the West, with a lot of racist bullshit. This is how you get people to kill en masse in any large group over history, with really fucking big excuses. Big violence requires big excuses. Racism is one of the biggest excuses of them all. Speaking of which, Calusa and ethnocentrism, the same. How are we committing the genocides currently in the Middle East? Well, we saw the rollout of all the East-West anti-Islam dogma coming out of the Bush administration, which he still hasn't been held accountable for, setting the culture and tone of our country top down. George Bush was a ethnocentrist bigot openly. I think that's a historic record. We just have to remember it. Speaking of which, Calusa has a Chinatown district dating to 1800s that had supposed underground tunnels where people gambled, smoked opium, and generally stayed out of the way of the native sons. Yeah, that's what you'll always have: immigrants, and you always have ignorance. And the immigrants, that's the immigrant story, is to learning how to avoid the assholes. And that becomes a part of the story. A family farm. Downtown, Shaw and I met Melody, a farmer's wife. She was very eager to tell her story. She had first-hand experience dealing with immigrant labor, health insurance, and the agriculture markets. What surprises me is that she had as many questions as I do about where the extra productivity goes in the market. I was starting to look at the economy at a macro picture and be like, we're increasing productivity. Where are the spoils of our increasingly productive economy going? But the mechanisms are in place for them to pull it like cream off the top of our economy. And that's why the middle class and the poor keep getting fucked, and all the profits, even in this latest recession. What is the boom and bust cycle but manipulation in order to take out the profits of our economy? The rich got richer out of this recession. It was a jobless recovery is what they called it, which is a euphemism for being fucked in the ass by the rich, right? That's too emotional, Shaz. We don't use that language. We use calm, even-handed. So when Shaz says someone's getting fucked in the ass, that means he's being too emotional. All right. What surprises me, blah, blah, blah. Because the way she explains it, they're growing more than ever before and still only just getting by. As the pie grows, why does it seem that the working family slice is staying the same or even shrinking? Well, I guess the first place to look would be the folks with stains on their faces. As a pie, yeah, that was a metaphor, so that's imagery. As the pie grows, our productivity increases. Why does it seem that the working family slice is staying the same or ever shrinking? I'm noticing that we're in a recession, but some people are making money in this recession, and some people are paying for it. Austerity, austerity during the recession, and then during times of surplus budget, decrease government and cut taxes, so they get you coming and going. When we have no money, there's no money for social programs. And when we have money, then that money has to be reinvested in tax cuts. There's always an excuse for greed. Well, I guess the first place to look would be the folks with stains on their faces, the people who are eating the pie. And that brings us to our last picture, to close out Calusa. In the past, I would imagine that a small town like this would be the epitome of 4-H type values. I met guys from 4-H when I was in the military. I ran across a lot of Midwest dudes. So I kind of understood this stuff. I pledged my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living. For my club, my community, my country, and the world. But you start local, and then you extend outward. Not first allegiance to my country before my local community. Self-improvement for the sake of a better citizen and a better society. After witnessing the following contrast, MTV storming the local coffee shop, an employee of the world's 5th largest corporation making his rounds, a wife of a farmer who works to provide her husband with health insurance, I started to question whether there was such a thing as small-town values. There should be a saying. You know it ain't real anymore when they put it in a reality TV show. That's what they were filming in. Reality TV. Me and Shah are going around trying to verify objective reality as we see it, and the actual people getting fucked by the recession. And then MTV is filming so-called reality TV, which is a staged production. So real people having a conversation on a blog podcast doesn't have social traction. Whereas listen to the words they use, reality TV, programming. Are you being programmed? No, I'm just watching programming. Are you being confused as to what reality is? No, I'm just watching reality TV. It's interesting. Wednesday was the night of the President's State of the Union speech. So we thought, I'm starting to talk about verified reality now, but reality TV has been the public lexicon since the beginning of the 2000s. So the war against reality started a while ago. I'm just catching up. I'm about 20 years too late. 90s is when Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and reality TV started up. How's the war against objective reality right before we started that war, actual war in the Middle East, and which is the least reported on war in the modern age? All that embedded journalism, objective facts, objective reality are under attack. But 'tis just an opinion of the Shaz. January 27th, 2010. Willows. Wednesday was the night of the President's State of the Union speech. This is Obamatron. So we thought it would be a good time to go door to door and talk to people. Maybe we'd get lucky and someone would invite us to watch the president with him. After canvassing a neighborhood, we didn't have any luck. Maybe people aren't as friendly after dark. Maybe a town with stickers like the one above. It was like a watch out for meth addicts sticker. It was pretty gnarly. Seemed like it was a high meth rate town. Which is it a symptom of our gutting out of our civics and small town communities? Yeah. Maybe a town with the stickers like the one above posted in restaurant windows doesn't trust mustachioed strangers on their porch in the dark. Either way, we did convince this one guy to break from Bo for a couple minutes of conversation. That was our interview for that town. He was very nice and encouraging off and on camera. And it's the little things like that that keep us going on the road. In any sales, when you get good people to lay down deals, or when you get that girl who you're her type, that could have been that for me if I was more hard up physically for companionship this weekend. This is still Monday, November 26th, so I had that run-in with that girl that I took to Slab City. She helped me emotionally know that I could have a connection with someone, but those things keep you going. I'm sorry to her if it wasn't everything she hoped it would be, but we'll see. I told her I wish you the best and I hope you find what you're looking for. I may or may not have sent a cockpic, but I think that might be old Shaz. That's bad Shaz that we're trying to correct. Mr. Obama. Since it was a slow day in a small town, I'll sign off with a full text of Obama's speech. I'll hopefully get around to commenting on it soon, and then repost with links. By the way, they always told us that athletes play other sports, whereas wrestlers don't play, they wrestle. That's right, Bam. I'd mop the mat with that Brillo pad at Slate. Those are my emotions. That stuff that you edit out when you're writing. It's like that's a silly like, oh, I'll fight you, Obama. It's but when that's the emotions, that's me as violent as Shaz gets. It's like, oh, you Obama, I'll wrestle you. But really objective, like calming those emotions down. Let's dig into, which I would do now if I had time, but this is more about me and less about him. Dig into State of the Union and find out where I disagree. And let's point out my framework of reality, compare it to yours. What are your values, Barack Obama, and how do you exhibit those values in your actions? I believe my values are more human, and I believe I have a larger framework of history to draw on. That's why I like the Tao, because it's 600 BC, 500 BC. It might be older than 1,000 years, 2,000 years. It's ancient Chinese wisdom. So when people come at me with their universal ethics coming for Christianity, I'm just like, pretend like I've never heard that term before because I got something older. We respect time as an authority. And so by finding one of the oldest spiritual traditions that in the human record, I found something I feel can trump other spiritual traditions. So the same thing with Barack, that's how I would approach him. These more emotional outbursts don't get you as much traction. It's not as mature. But you keep it just to show you where my mind was back then or now. I'm sincerity and honesty correct towards truth. If I err, tell me but where. And I will correct myself or be corrected by the world, right? January 28th, 2010, Red Bluff. Pop quiz, hotshot. Guess which of the following has been the hardest to find on the road so far? An interview, a good night's sleep, a shower. Surprisingly, we never had to travel far before we find someone with an interesting point of view. And either the Honda's getting more comfortable or my back's curving to its efficient Japanese ergonomics. But it seems that a shower is hard to come by unless you want to sneak into state parks or community gyms. I did not do both of those. One of those, maybe. In Red Bluff, we decided to get smart and just hit up the trailer park. As luck would have it, the manager was a wonderful person, more than willing to share her stories in the park. I mentioned to her in the video that we've talked to a couple people so far on our trip, and not one has defended the government. Some might see that as a negative, but I'm inspired by a feeling that we have a lot of room for improvement, so there should be plenty of answers out there waiting to be applied. No. I don't know where I'm going with this. We figured answers and justice went together, and we wanted to include as many public figures as possible. So we went, is it no? Maybe I meant no question mark? There should be plenty of answers out there waiting to be applied, no? We figured answers and justice went together, and we wanted to include as many public figures as possible. So we went over to the Dahama County Courthouse, but we encountered a usual problem. Public officials didn't want to appear on camera. Bill, the Veterans Service Officer, was a great guy, though. He talked with us for a little bit, asking us about our trip and what we hope to accomplish. Now, that's always a tough question for me to answer. What do we hope to accomplish? We got the same question later in the day from a Chamber of Commerce official who changed his mind about an interview. Personally, I see this as an organic project, where by doing it, we are learning what we should be doing. Later on, that would come to be known as prefigurative politics in my mind, that you are doing something which is exhibiting the values of the project as opposed to the means to the end. But again, if something is the truth, then it won't be contained by ideology or dogma. You can find it on your own path. So all of this is just Shaz following his own inspiration. If there's any inspiration for this project, it's not in political theory, which I haven't read much of by this. I've read philosophy, and I've read books about activists and stuff, but the deep theory I'm not really too into. Once it gets too theory stuff, like I didn't read Zizek then, I barely read him now, Badiou, however you say those guys' names. I'm not into the guys in ivory towers, but I'm more into so the person who inspired this was Granny D. The walk across, just citizens get involved in civics, and you're just going to figure stuff out. And then also this, what I've come to learn is a Tao Zenist idea of just organic, spontaneous action is a form of art. So, but something I've always identified with, spontaneous creation. My ideal is that this is how politics should be. Politicians seeking wisdom from their constituents and then synthesizing it for the common good. You look at any major candidate and they're telling you what they believe. What's good for you? What's good for America? Prescriptive politics. I have a suspicion that you don't have to memorize the truth. You don't have to dress it in millions and beat people over the head with it. I'm starting to suspect this top-down narrative approach. If you just start the right discussion, it should spread like wildfire. But then propaganda also spreads like wildfire. Come to think of it, wildfire seems kind of destructive. That's just me running with a metaphor. But Bill, he humors us and eventually admits that he's over 70 years old and doesn't expect much change from an entrenched system. But the fact that he took the time gave me hope. They say in sales, as long as they're talking to you, they're interested. You get a string of no's before that final yes. If they're saying no, then you're doing your job. The only objection you can't overcome is when they stop talking. And it seems like everyone is at least talking, if only to say no. This train is bound for glory. This picture of a red bluff church seems fitting in remembrance of Howard Zinn. He died while we were on the road. Broke my heart. Who once said, "You can't be neutral on a moving train." I just said that a little bit ago. I remember when I was talking about Joe Rogan, when I finally heard a people's history. A friend of mine had downloaded it to an iPod, and I decided to listen to it while I went camping one weekend. So my memory of Howard Zinn is hiking for 3 hours into the Big Sur wilderness with the moon on my path and Matt Damon in my ear, introducing me to our labor history, our Indian slaughters, our prison slaughters, the multifacets of the civil rights movements, and hours of other stories that make up a history. Whether it's a long hike or half an hour before bed, if people know their own history, they will become better citizens. I could always tell a good historian when I was left with a sense of possibility rather than determinism. As in, wow, we're allowed to do stuff like that? And that's what I felt reading Howard Zinn or any good history. I'm like reading the diggers in the 1600s who would go in feudal England and just go into fallow lands that were being laid to waste and just start digging out the food. They said, fuck it, we're just going to go in after you've taken out your crops, and we're dying of starvation. We're going to go and take food. It's an anarchist thing. Ask for work. If they don't give you work, ask for bread. If they don't give you bread, take the bread. But the humans should not starve in a world of plenty. So the diggers in 1600s England would go and they just dig up the food out of the ground and then plant their own crops in fields. Most Latin American countries respect poverty to the point that they allow you to squat on unused land. If the land's not being used, it's for the lowest in the economic ladder to use it, as opposed to letting resources waste while people starve. That's inhuman. And a lot of countries recognize squatters' rights for that reason. Even states, New York City, I think California too, but New York is probably one of the best, or I'm more familiar with their rights out of any of them. But if you're not using property and someone puts it to good use, they acknowledge it's better for the community for that property to not be empty and inviting crime. And they'd rather the squatter live in there but use it as opposed to an absentee tenant. So that's the best history. That's what you don't get from Chomsky. I don't know if that's a personal flaw of his or if it's purposeful, but you're not left with an optimistic worldview. I'm not, and people I've introduced him to aren't either. This isn't just me. But with the best guys, the best writers, you're like, yeah, fuck yeah. We're on the winning side. We have the talent, the numbers, Anyways, January 29th. Weaverville. Naked happy people. My folks still have rabbit ears on their TV. Very basic local channels. So when I'm visiting, I find them watching a lot of PBS. There's this one show, Northern Exposure, that ran from 1990 to 95. Really an amazing show. And I'm pretty sure that Weaverville is real-life Sicily, Alaska. Just check out these pics below. You can friend me on Facebook to see all the pics. But these are just too good to miss. I'm over early social media marketing. Little did I know if I just stayed in that vein and practice, I would probably have like a well, easily have a six-figure career. I might have $1 million media company by now, because that's where everything's gone into advertising, Facebook, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that curve is probably already done, and now we're waiting for the next thing. But back then, that's what I'm starting to realize in life, is these projects weren't dumb projects. Sometimes, until now, when I'm being very accepting, and this is probably the most faith I put into myself creatively, artistically, professionally, giving up a $500,000, no, that was $1 million real estate company. Giving up a real estate company where I easily could have made millions in order to do this project. I have a lot of faith in what I'm doing now, but it's because I see back then that, like, if I had stayed on this grind, this would have made me millions. Just the way I was, if I just kept learning about social media marketing, kept growing my brand, kept growing my podcast base, like a certain person that we won't mention now. So yeah, it's interesting. So I have a lot of faith now. Whatever I'm doing now, I just got to stick on it, because my ideas, when they're good, they're good. I think. We will see if Shaz is as smart as he thinks he is. Maybe this is what Sacramento needs to bring Dems and Repubs together. It was a naked calendar. I put pics of a naked calendar. The Chamber of Commerce got all the local businesses to pose naked. It was cute. Lost. It was a very full Monty type thing. Shaw and I got the pictures above from a complimentary calendar given to us by a sweet lady who volunteers at the Chamber of Commerce. Uh-oh. This guy's dying. I gotta plug him in. He's dying and I gotta plug him in. Just 1 second. Technical difficulties. I'll stand up, but then you'll see that I'm not wearing any pants. And we have the illusion of professionalism. So let us maintain the illusion of professionalism. And all right. We have Shaz's recorder. If you ever see Shaz with this thing, he's probably recording the conversation, because that is what I do during this year. In order to practice being a public person, act like all your conversations are recorded. And I am not the best actor, so just record all your conversations. There you go. Ready? So, but that is 2018 work. And right now we're catching up to 2018. And then 2019 is when we're going to sell 2018 work. So there is a method to the madness. Okay. Sean and I got the pictures above from a complimentary calendar given to us by a sweet lady who volunteers at the Chamber of Commerce. I don't know whether to be wary of the Chamber of Commerce or to use it as a reliable resource. On one hand, they're suicidal corporate profiteers. On the other, this lady just gave me cookies and a naked people calendar. I was so amazed at how picturesque this little town was. Every detail. I asked the pizza guy about it, and he explained how the community was in the middle of gorgeous mountains that developers didn't have access to. So you get unspoiled paradisaic settings. I googled that word. It's a real word. Paradise-like. Alpine rivers, lakes, woods, combined with an escapee community. It's too bad that I didn't record our first conversation, because Johnny really gave some great reasons why he escaped the Bay Area. He shares the opinion I encountered in Colusa, that the efficiency the average worker doesn't see a return on is being siphoned out of the markets at the top. I don't think that everyone can run away to make pizza in the mountains, but you could do a lot worse. One last detail. A lumber mill burned down recently, and the community gathered together to form a dinner drive for the workers. The owner of the destroyed mill was able to rent one down the road and hire back some of the guys, but they're still struggling. Who knows if there are black and white answers to legislative problems? But if we can foster this type of civic community, our problems will solve themselves. Or more precisely, our neighbors will help solve our problems. Found. This parking sign reads, roughly, Wintu lived in the Shasta area for thousands of years. Gold was discovered, and the miners came. Mining destroyed the salmon, and the miners called for the genocide of the Indians. In spite of all this, the Wintu survived. So those are the values of America. from the Iroquois to the Iraqi genocide in order to promote this viral idea of empire. When were the killing machines turned off exactly? Did they really stop once we reached the geographic limits of America? No. That was the age of empire. That's when they started in earnest. We had the Spanish-American War, Puerto Rico, Cuba, both colonies of Spain fighting for their independence. We said we'd help them out. We actually kind of fucked them over. And then the Philippines, where we waterboarded and tortured those people, openly, blatantly racist. And now when we're in Iraq, we're not openly, blatantly racist. It's just a war of cultures. These people are backwards, and we're really helping them the best we can. We try anyways, by dropping $30,000 bombs on people who wouldn't make more than that in a lifetime. And then we get other people to shoot bullets at them, and those people don't even make that in a year. And each one of those soldiers cost $1 million a year to keep in that foreign war of aggression. And no one's questioned it because they're not plugged into objective reality. They're plugged into reality TV. I think that's a pretty clear summation of the world around me. And then you wonder why people like me feel like we're going crazy. We're not, though. We're trying to maintain our sanity in the face of insanity around us. People who are so dialed up to emotional levels that they buy the bullshit at least enough to vote for either the idiot on the left or the idiot on the right. Shaz, though, what do you propose as the alternative? Well, maybe, perhaps, brainstorming, let me see, a real alternative? As in a new political party? Well, can you do that? You can make your own political party? I don't know. Let's see. Can you? Can you make your own political party? Will they allow us to do that? I don't think I'm the type of person to ask permission. But let's see if I can beg forgiveness after the fact. We will see how much of Shaz America can take. But a warning, America. Shaz is bigger than the average. Oh, I'm immediately reminded of Howard Zinn from yesterday's post. You can't stay neutral on a moving train. What is the cost of this pseudo-neutrality? What is the defense of human dignity? Things just happen without responsible actors, aggressors, or victims. And that's supposed to be a historic tidbit. In spite of all this, the Wintu survived. That just pissed me off. It's like, no, motherfuckers. It's the same pattern going on now. Iroquois to the Iraqi, genocide. It's A to Z. Just connect the motherfucking dots. Unplug from your virtual reality and plug into actual objective reality. There's facts around you. Just connect the dots. And then people are like, what? You one of those dudes talking about like trying to look for truth? Are you a truth seeker? You think the world is flat? Is that the truth you're looking for? You looking for geographic truth? Because I got truth. I got truth for sale, man. Dank memes can't melt steel beams. The world is flat. If you're trying to figure out the world, let's figure out everything. After you clean the room, first you clean the room. You're not allowed to question the world unless you have a clean room. And also, the moon. You should probably figure out if the moon is real too. Not the moon landing, the moon. The moon might be fake. Everything might be fake. So they push you. Question any of the dominant narratives, and all of a sudden, you're over here. You a conspiracy theorist? Because I got conspiracies to sell. I'll give you. Oh my gosh. Druggy girl, the young one in New York, just emailed me. Let me read you her email so she could be as famous as Shaz will someday be. If only in his own mind. What do you have to say to me? I told you, you better fucking get your life together because you're about to be put on blast. I told her, I said, get your life together. Stop holding drugs. Shaz takes drugs as gifts. He doesn't hold drugs because Shaz is about to be hot. There ain't no hotter than someone who gets into politics. Where the fuck is the email? Right? That's why I record my fucking life. Because I'm trying to check just how much stupid shit do I say. So that way when people start getting mad at me for doing stupid shit. Oh. So she is the type of girl to send me pictures like this. Let me share that with you guys. You see that? What the fuck is this? What is this? Why are you sending me a spoon? Is this your heroin spoon? Are you shooting up now? Is that what you're doing, or is that a cocaine spoon? I don't know. Why is a spoon? What drugs do I do where you need a spoon? I don't think I would ever shoot something into my veins. That's kind of like a. You're not a casual drug user. Like, that's why I don't like. I did some fucking. What time do we have? 30 minutes. We have time for a digression. I did some dabs at the hot springs in Slab City. And fuck, first of all, after five joints between six people, and we had been staying blunted until that point, so we were already pretty high, just smoking bowls and meeting people, and then being in the hot springs. And I could do that. I could smoke this last year. I could smoke as much physical weed, as many joints, and my lungs will give out before my mind does. But once you introduce like edible, some other way to ingest it, so dabs, now you're doing like oils. You're just like hash or something. So like fucking they showed me how to use the rig they had, and I was so high, I was like, I didn't know what the fuck was going on. They're like, just do this. And so I was like, all right. And I did one, and they're like, all right. But like, I was still engaging, so they still felt, no, this guy hasn't had enough. So I wasn't going to tap out yet. I was like, I'll keep smoking as much as you put in front of me. And then they fucking, he's like, no, try to get that little guy right there. When you're sucking in, just try to get the whole thing. So I was like, and then I just breathed out this fucking dragon fire of smoke, like so much smoke. It was like a cumulonimbus of fucking just right up into the horizon, and then fucking 2 towns over, they thought a rain cloud was coming. It was that much smoke that just came out of my lungs, and I was just like, and I had like 5 or 6 beers by then, maybe 6 or 7. I had a couple handfuls at a time, put them in my sweater, and then go back for more. So I wasn't spinny, but I had to like lay back, and then I was like done with socializing. I was like, didn't talk much after that. Gave them an Irish goodbye. Within 5 minutes, I was like, all right, you guys, we're about to take off. That's a KO. You got me. I was just like, I just wanted bed. Let me lay down, and I can't wait until I'm not this high. That's when you're just like, you've overshot your mark. It's like, oh, I'm hanging. There's no way I could ever get too high. And then you're just like, I can't wait until. I've done that with caffeine. When you have too much coffee, and you're just like, all you can do is drink water and be like, I can't wait until I'm not this cracked out. I haven't done that with cocaine, but I'm afraid it would stop my heart. But yeah, when you overshoot your mark with alcohol, I can't wait until I'm not spinny anymore. Luckily, I wasn't spinny. That's terrible when you're like, the whole world's rocking. But those dabs are fucking. Anyways, this girl, she shows me the spoon. It's like, what the fuck, spoon? All the coke I've done is off of lines. Fucking last time I did heroin was. That's what I wonder about that. I did heroin with her, and does she think that like I want to be a junkie with her now? Does she she's losing perspective, and I think that's what I did it with her. And I told her, I was like, you're starting a path. You're gonna lose objective perspective of reality, of me, of your own self-control. The addiction's gonna take hold in you like a cancer, and it's gonna eat you out. And then you think you have problems now. Wait until you have the problems of someone in their 30s looking back on their wasted 20s because you don't even remember it, because it was just that addiction trying to feed itself. But she's not going to physically survive then. She's being suicidal because of trauma in her life. I don't know what that trauma is. I'm tactful enough now that when I recognize trauma, I don't probe unless it's granted, because I know that we're going to unpack some really heavy emotional shit. But I've gotten to points where the conversation shuts down and I just don't probe further. But shit happened to her, and she's treating it with this. And that's why you don't judge addicts, because you don't know what they're treating with their addiction. But it's something heavy if they're choosing suicide, and this is just a form of suicide. I told her as much as I had. I gave her as much information as I had, being 36 and having seen this happen in my life multiple times, that like, this is what's ahead of you. Yeah, I told her there's going to be a point in which you're too tragic for me to do drugs with anymore, and I think we're already at that point. And she sends me that she wants me to come back to New York and hang out with her, and probably this is where like the carrot and the stick approach. Chaz is going to have to send a stick email, not a carrot email. Like, I just read this book about Hunter Thompson, and maybe I don't think she knows that about him. He didn't do the drugs he says he did. She glorifies him. So many of these druggy kids glorify Hunter, like, oh, Hunter, I want to do the fucking, the drugs Hunter did. That guy was a little bitch. He fucking was afraid of losing himself in psychedelics, and he was he wasn't the most honest human being with himself or with the people around him. And that's just objective if you look at his life. He had a really cool style and he had a good heart and he was very sincere. And some of the ways that he described America, especially at the time, and some of the things he witnessed were you couldn't have asked for any other reporter on the scene. But like I have my faults, everyone has their faults. This whole path is for me to open up my blind spots first to myself, so they're first videos for me, but then to the world. But we all need that introspective path if we want to correct towards truth. And you can tell when people don't have a path like that because they don't grow, they don't change, and they become bitter old men who eventually feel like it's in their best interest to kill themselves. Was he murdered? There's a theory out there he was murdered, but he seemed a little bitter and cynical in his old age. People around him attested to that, and so if you survive the addiction that the trauma drove you into, you survive to grow up to be a cynical older person. You don't want to do that either. So I told her the only way I see of saving her now, because she won't listen to my words, and even when I do the drugs with her, she still won't listen to me. So if I make money off the writing and I show her like, I want to show her a way she can be idealistic. She doesn't buy into anything life's offering her. But if I offered her a job, I think she would buy into that. And then I just like drug test her for like certain drugs and be like, look, you could do these drugs, don't do these drugs. You can't do any opioids. It's too dangerous. I think she thinks that opioids won't affect her. And I'm not that foolhardy. There's certain drugs I would never do meth even once because there's actually maybe in a clinical setting, because I'm kind of curious as far as a clinical setting. I said I would do heroin in a clinical setting, but one thing she's good at is doing drugs. So I trusted her not to kill me, and I said all you have to do is not kill me. But I probably wouldn't do opioids again unless in a clinical setting, because that fentanyl shit can just kill you one hit unless you have like a good testing kits. So I guess maybe meth, but the negatives of that is like meth destroys your mind. Opioids don't destroy your body or your mind. They're just psychologically, it's a lot to deal with that intense pleasure. But I've dealt with it before in a surgery setting, so I knew that. And I know people deal with it in a pain setting, and I had historical. We're going on an aside right now, but we don't have that many, so I think we can afford to do this. But she just emailed me, so that's cool. This is a little like last video of Monday, November 26, 2018, and again email from. So like this is a little capsule into my life right now. But what drug? Cocaine. I'm don't have to be in a clinical setting to do cocaine. Cocaine, if it's cut with shit, doesn't really kill you. You could just tell it's really chemically. And when you're in certain areas, you're close to certain sources. So in the Caribbean or in Latin America, you're pretty sure it's good shit if you know who you're talking to. But I wouldn't hold cocaine, and I feel funny buying it. So I feel funny buying any drugs now. I just kind of, when they come into my life, but I try not to do that multiple days in a row, more than once a week, even more than once a month. I don't even think, when was the last time I did coke? When I found it in my apartment, like 4 or 5 months ago. I don't have, if I was partying more, if on the nightlife circuit, but yeah, the shit works though. But yeah, cocaine doesn't wreck your brain like, it does technically. Cocaine, not like speed, but it does damage your brain long term. That's been shown. And crack too. Opioids, really, if you're going to do a drug, it's the psychological effects. I would do cocaine before opioids because cocaine, I just feel like it's intense caffeine. Talking, confidence. It makes sense in a social setting. Opioids make sense in a setting like I can't get this happiness from life in general, and that whole defeatist attitude is what would keep me away from that. Coke seems more like a casual thing, whereas opioids is like you don't want to be replacing objective reality, real life happiness with that. And if I was in a high pain setting, I definitely wouldn't take opioids for that. I would take edibles because I love weed so much, and weed actually provides me pretty good pain, anti-inflammation relief. I've been in settings before where like weed helped me out a lot. So I would take opioids if I was terminally ill, and that's the way I'd go out and fucking either heroin induced Shangri-La or like a lot of like LSD and psychedelics. But yeah, anyways, Shaz's philosophy about drugs. In the spirit of all this, I'm immediately reminded of Howard Zinn's post from yesterday. You can't stay neutral on a moving train. What is the cost of this pseudo-neutrality? Where is the defense of human dignity? Things just happen without responsible actors, aggressors, or victims. And that's supposed to be a historical tidbit. It's purposeful forgetting. In a friendship feast in 1850, whites served poisoned food to the Indians. This isn't blankets with chicken pox. They had a friendship feast, Thanksgiving that we have. In the 1850s in California, whites served Indians a Thanksgiving with poisoned food to help perpetuate their genocides. You don't think this shit's going on in Iraq? It's the same culture and the same excuses, the same people. It's a historic fallacy to believe that the people now can't subscribe to that mob mentality objectification that the people back then did. It's the same power structures pushing it from the top down. It's the same imperial conquest, which requires the same useful idiots to persecute their wars of aggression. There's some crazy shit happening in Iraq, I'm sure. Crazy racist shit. In my notes. Anyways, the emotions are coming out, Shaz. When you curse, it means that you're becoming too emotional and you need to calm down, okay? If you don't rein yourself in, the world is going to rein you in. And you don't want to feel the reprimand of 1,000 angry moms writing you letters because their children are cursing because now you're cursing, Shaz. If you want to be a good role model and you want to stop people wagging their finger at you, you need to stop fucking cursing. John Fremont, presidential candidate, explorer, and all-around badass, oversaw the revenge killing of 175 Indians. This was a presidential candidate. There was like, if an Indian kills one white person, they have a revenge killing. Now you have to go and you have to kill as many Indians as you can. If we lose one American soldier in our military in Iraq, there's revenge killings. I've read evidence of this. Its policy is we're like the Hell's Angel of retribution in the military. Is not an eye for an eye, two eyes for one eye. If you kick the Hell's Angels out at the height of their power in California, across the nation, when you kicked one out, they would burn your fucking bar down. They believe in more like an all or nothing approach. Anyways, I have Hunter S. Thompson in my mind, Hell's Angels. I just finished that book. Our nation has a barbaric past. And if you look close enough, you'll realize that it has a barbaric present as well. The future, all the naked calendars in the world aren't going to slow down the pathfinders of the future. We need to stop them from being created. We need to stop the fucking assholes who justify this barbaric attitudes. All right, we need to hurry up. I'm almost done, but I'm running out of time too. February 1st, 2010, Reading. Clint the couch surfer. It's the start of the third week, and we're a little winded. The first weekend, we were within driving distance of Santa Cruz, so we were able to stay with friends, play some music, recharge our batteries for the road. But Weaverville was too close to Reading to go all the way back to the Bay Area. Luckily, couch surfing turned what could have been a stressful weekend into a vacation. Clint has his beautiful Spanish-style home with exposed beams and adobe walls. He also has a couple crazy stories, like the pigs his dad kept on the adjacent property that the Laotians would purchase, killing and draining them on site. Now Clint's family has emus. Apparently they were supposed to be the next big thing. Emu Buffle PDF. I looked up emu bubble. It was like everyone thought emus were going to replace chickens or some shit. Shaz, stop cursing. You want to be a good role model. Stop fucking cursing. He also told me how he'd cruise pawn shops in Las Vegas and pick out expensive construction equipment for pennies on the dollar. His buddies tell him he should be ashamed because the serial numbers are filed off the tools. It's okay, my stuff's been stolen in the past too, he said. And then one of those tools he bought in Vegas was actually stolen from one of his job sites. It's okay then, right? Like karma, pay it forward. Nah, they actually caught that guy. I think he's in jail now. Joey the anarchist. Actually, I still thought just the anarchists were silly back then. I think they're silly now, but I thought they were silly back then too. Actually, I think Joey would describe himself as an anarcho-syndicalist. The way anarchism is an ideal that will be very useful in analyzing the world nowadays because they believe in dissolving all authority except the absolutely most necessary. But I believe in pragmatic circles, and politics is about compromising, getting people on board and correcting as much as you can, because we have to help people gather their way to the truth. And just because we have one side, it might only be 10%, 1% of the population who has an objective framework of reality. There's so much confusion and meddling, and also there's blind spots I might not be looking at myself. But anarchism is a direction. It doesn't have to be a destination. That's what ideals are. There is no pure capitalism, communism, socialism. The purity becomes the poison. That's a good one, Shaz. You should throw that on a bumper sticker. The purity becomes a poison. Actually, I think Joey would describe himself as an anarcho-syndicalist. I don't think I'll do it justice, but from what I gather, it's a couple questions rolled into one. How necessary is government? How much ownership can labor have? And how much freedom efficiency can we squeeze out of this whole thing? Being that there are a couple famous heavy hitters in the field, I hope I don't make too much of a fool out of myself. That's my intimidation of Chomsky right there. But it can't be any worse than these videos where I do my worst talking over the interviewee today. I noticed in these videos I was talking too much, and that's why maybe I should have a podcast where I just talk. But I was talking too much, and I should listen more. It's also a problem on my relationships. I should listen more and talk less. But I blame it on the coffee and the excitement. I really like their idea about setting up anarchist book collectives in local stores. The book in the background of this video is written by a psychiatrist. He had Wretched of the Earth in the background. Pretty cool. I'd read that by then. By a psychiatrist who had a crazy idea that if you push human beings hard enough, their mental health will depend on creating an identity where that pushes back. Thus, you have your broken societies that are subjugated, and your freedom fighters who retain their dignity and sense of self at the cost of, well, a bomb from a droning toy in the sky. Lesson: you can't fight asymmetrical warriors or terrorists or freedom fighters with a gun. Their very identity feeds off their antagonism. The human being will find a way to protect their dignity. And so if you go into the country and you rape and pillage and murder, then there's going to be a response. That's human nature. You can bully 9 out of 10 people, but there'll be one person who is unbullyable. And now that is the seed of the resistance. You can't break human nature because there will be those with unbreakable wills. And it sucks when they're the heart of your insurgency because you're not going to be able to shoot your way out of there. Eventually, you're going to have to get them to come to the table because this is their fucking country. And no, your troops and your bombs aren't going to change that. That's just the reality. And if you disagree with that, you disagree with logic, and you disagree with the art of warfare itself, which is to understand your enemy. And it also means you have to understand yourself. So we got this. I got it on all sides. If you want to defend yourself as an imperialist, you're not being a good imperialist. If you want to defend yourself as a human being, you're not being a human being. So check and mate. Mike the sergeant. At the same coffee shop where I later met Joey, I ran into a couple of cops who referred me to a Sergeant Mike, apparently the guy with the political opinions. Shaw and I thought for sure Mike blew us off. We were about to skip town for the night when he called. I can't say enough good things about Mike. Maybe it's just because I came from the other side end of the spectrum. The guy came from the anarchist and now I'm talking to the cop. Maybe it's just because I thought he wasn't going to call back, and so I was already creating a stereotype in my head, which I'm pretty good at not doing, accepting people as they are. This is stuff like that. My anarchist friends would think I'm selling out, doing real estate, or doing, and that's why I take them as a little silly, the people who buy so much in an identity. That they blind themselves to objective truth. All right, we're going to finish this before 12 minutes. Mike was very generous with his time. Finally having to excuse himself after my promised 5 minutes snowballed into 45. Some people don't understand how I could question authority 1 minute and then rave about an authority figure the next. What I like about Mike is that he has a peace about him, a satisfaction of knowing that he is doing what he thinks is right. I might not agree with him. I might even go as far as to say that he's contradicting himself on certain issues. But he's sincere. And as I've started to articulate now, sincerity corrects towards the truth. And either I'm going to learn something or he is. Hopefully we both are. The best part of the conversation, I think this happened off camera, is when we were talking about the Constitution and how it was supposed to decentralize power, with the states and the people retaining the lion's share. It's a weird feeling when you find yourself learning about the Ninth Amendment and constitutional law from a police officer. Let me include a quote here for those of you who didn't click on the links, and for a certain friend of mine who is attending San Francisco University. This is who I thought was going to be my vice president. In one of my videos from this year, I went and talked to him. But he's a public defender now in Santa Cruz and future candidate for mayor. But he is going to, right now he's in law school, and he was giving me some. I noticed in my life that people who care about me always try to support me, even though I was being so weird that I was denying any support or burning a lot of bridges. So he's a good guy who's always kind of checked in on me. Which helps. That's how it kept me from being somewhat still grounded, and I didn't go off into the deep, deep end because I had love and family and friends keeping me back in society. A universe of rights possessed by people, latent rights, still to be evoked and enacted into law. A reservoir of other unenumerated rights that the people retain, which in time may be enacted into law. Harvard historian Bernard Balin. A universe of rights. So it's just because it's not in law doesn't mean that we don't retain it. There's inherent rights that we might yet have to enact into law in order to protect them. The right to the internet might be one, because the internet now is offering us the best tool for objective reality, which is under threat right now. Harvard trumps SFU. Case closed. That's what I told my friend. I think we were arguing about this. But seriously, when you open your eyes and assert yourself, the world is a blank sheet of paper, and you're holding the pencil, the marker, the right to create to the limits of your imagination, which can be a blessing or a curse. Some imaginations stop at emu markets. Rairika, frozen. The coldest night of the road so far. Huddled up in the car in Rairika with clothes wrapped around my head, falling in and out of Eskimo dreams. You know you shouldn't be sleeping outdoors when you wake up and instead of dew there's ice on the ground. But other than the night, Rairika was wonderful to us. We went to the city hall, landed a great interview with the mayor pro tempore. He reinforced the idea of our pattern of underfunding local governments. I asked if we could maybe have a CA public works project to provide jobs for his community and also rebuild aging infrastructure. He didn't seem to be holding out for that option. Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be poets. While walking downtown, Shah and I stumbled into a community arts center. They're a nonprofit that provides a space for the arts in their community. A worker there gave us an overview of their mission and her 2 cents on what was wrong with politics and CA and where we can apply our effort. I've always held that we as a society tuck away our highest values in the arts. So even back then I was like, art is where the human stuff is in history. Look at the art, and there's always saying something about their society probably and the current condition, because it might not just be a reaction. That's like counterculture, reactionary art, but art is where the best of humanity. We for safekeeping. I feel like we wrap truth in aesthetics. Keats, truth is beauty, beauty, truth. This is all you know on earth, all you need to know, and that's a lifetime of arts and studying aesthetics as an artist. He puts that into his aphorism, his whatever. What do you call those? We're going to have to keep visiting that well if we want to imagine a better world. After all, if poetry was good enough for cowboys, it should be good enough for the rest of us. We also stumbled across a very sincere web designer who gave us not only an interview, but some good criticism about our nascent website. It's surprising the amount of help that's out there if you're willing to ask. Moo Donna. The people at the art center referred us to a man named Ralph Starrett, a salvaged metal sculpture on the border of town. Ralph wasn't at his studio, but we took a tour of his work, and I was amazed at what he'd been able to construct from disparate scraps of discarded junk. Some of his most famous works are a Moo Donna, a larger-than-life robust cow that overlooks the highway south of Rairika, and an even bigger dragon that is lit up at night just north of town, to the surprise of passing motorists. The cow kind of fits the landscape, but the dragon definitely causes a double take. Fire! The metal structure above is one of the many Starrett creations that are sprinkled throughout the city. If our lives are mostly a constant evasion of ourselves, the artist functions as the town crier screaming our names. I've used that metaphor before, but not the town crier, but of the firemen. Maybe some people are firefighters who come in to save the day, although a case could be made that our politicians create as many fires as they put out. But maybe first we need someone to yell fire, because as Shah and I passed through small town after small town, we witnessed the embers of local economies smoldering. And for all the faith I put in art, a metal firefighter can't ring the bell. He can only inspire you to do it yourself. I care about small town America, and I'm seeing the wreckage. February 17th, 2010, Sacramento. Between February 3rd and 17th, Shah and I took some time off to regroup. We were getting overwhelmed with the amount of content we were creating. We needed some time to get caught up. This meant cutting 2 weeks out of our itinerary in hopes that we can add them to the end. So thanks to a great CS guy with a taste for nostalgia, see the above photo, we positioned in Sacramento on the 17th. Get ready to get to the bottom of things. Recess. It's a little intimidating walking into the big white round building where laws are made. I'm going to have to do another video because I know I'm going to talk about this. All right, we're going to be 2 hours and maybe a half hour. We'll do a half hour more. Yeah, we'll finish this and then I'll do another video. I didn't realize this was going to take an hour. I guess maybe if I didn't do that aside about the drug girl. But it's a little intimidating walking into a big white round building where laws are made. We weren't sure where to start. I followed a tour guide for a bit while she explained to her gaggle of children why they wouldn't be able to see the governor today. This is when Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor of California. It's true. Look it up. It really was. It happened. One of the kids, he might have been around 7 years old, is explaining how Arnold can cut off the head of anyone he wants. Civics. They all gather around, and people want Oprah to run for president. Well, California leads, so, right? We had the first celebrity politician. We all gather around the bear that is licking Shah in the photo and snap cell pics of people hustling in and out of the double doors. As one of the doors swings wide, I catch a glimpse of Arnold and Maria, framed and hanging on the wall. What I did is I went to the Sacramento with Shah, and we just walked into I don't think you can do that anymore. Just walked into the Capitol building and started walking around talking to people. Pretty cool. And I tell Shah, we need to go upstairs. We're getting nowhere with the children. Plus, I'm jealous that they have better camera phones than I do. The adults. We start with the office of Lonnie Hancock. She represents Berkeley. We used to live in Berkeley. This should work. After sheepishly explaining our project about civics, I found myself sitting across from a staffer for Lonnie. Apparently, she was not there. This happened to be the busiest week in the legislature, with all bills for the upcoming year having to be introduced by Friday. And then I had a PDF of the legislative calendar in case you misplaced yours. So I'm learning on this trip, I guess I'm not a serious candidate for governor. I haven't even changed my name, and I'm going under this assumed name, and I have no infrastructure, and I have an itinerary that I was trying to cram into 3 months, which really was a year alone, maybe even more than that. I'm looking at the time, so I'm just going to have 3 more minutes. But yeah, I think we're going to stop here, and then I'll start the next video, because I get cut off at an hour on this built-in Microsoft Movie Creator that I'm using on a borrowed laptop. My parents are nice enough to loan me their work laptop, because if they don't believe in my artistic projects, they at least know enough to help me, because otherwise I'll just do it anyways, and I'll be a crazy homeless guy ranting to the people on the street. So I'm going to talk about, we're talking about, we went to California, Sacramento. Arnold Schwarzenegger is the governor. And yeah, you could tell it's night, so I'm getting tired, but I'm going to knock this out today. First day back to the videos after a couple days off. Forget that talking for a couple hours a day gets you tired. It's well, how long have I been going? About 4 hours so far. Cliff notes of our conversation. Yeah, we're going to basically, so we end up there the busiest week in the legislature, with all the bills for the upcoming year having to be introduced by Friday. So I'm starting to realize how overworked our legislature is. And this is all the local level. I'm not in Congress. I'm in California's Congress. And I'm starting all my intuitive things that I thought that it's power bottlenecks, and it's about cronyism from the very top down, and corporations and civics and the interplay between large power structures and the people at the very bottom. And then I'm talking to people who are actually losing their house because of the economy. Or this lady, she has to work this extra job just to provide her husband health care. Or I see MTV filming in a small town, but they're promoting bullshit top-down narratives probably. And just be rich and famous and be cool and everything's cool. And reality TV and the disengagement between objective reality around you and the small little technological frameworks, the iPhone and everything, or the TV screens. The screen reality, that's a good one. Real reality versus screen reality. But anyways, these got legs. It's got legs, Shaz. You just need to, I think I said in an earlier video, how I work my political theory. I brand it, an idea and then a good package. But we're running out of time. On to the next video. California Citizens Audit, Part 3.